Hello and welcome to another session of Karen's Colours. I'm Dr. Karen and these are my colour conversations. The time has come for another monthly reading for all of you according to your birthday month. And this month I'm going to be working with the Healing Energy Oracle. This one is an oracle created by Mario Duguay. He's an author and artist from Uruguay, I believe. Very interesting cards. But firstly, I'd like to welcome back those of you who have been following this series of videos. I certainly hope that you've learned a lot about how colour can influence your life and also how it has the ability to create all sorts of guidance as to how you can react and respond to the various issues that you are faced with throughout each month. I'm coming to you today from a very cold and chilly Australia. And so if I have to stop every now and then just to warm up, please excuse that. If you're new to this channel, you're very, very welcome to stay and learn something that you perhaps have not been exposed to before. I certainly hope that it is something that you will find of interest and maybe even come back. And if you are really interested, just hit that subscribe button. It doesn't hurt to have more people than my 35 subscribers hanging around. All right, so let's begin. So let's examine the reading for July, people, for August 2025. And the first thing we'll do is choose an oracle card. An oracle card for people born in July to accompany their colour reading for August 2025. And we'll place that card under here for later on. And now I'd like a colour reading for people born in the month of July for August 2025 to see what's likely to come out for them. And we begin with purple on orange, purple on yellow, purple on white, and yellow on yellow. Wow. All right. Well, the first thing we need to note is that there are two colours that are repeated. The first one is purple, and purple exists in the action in the past, the present, and in the future. And yellow appears as the motivating energy in the present, but also as both the motivator and the action in the underlying energy. Now, when we have the same colour appearing multiple times in a reading, it means that that colour and what it represents is of importance, and we should actually take some sort of special note of it. But when the same colour appears top and bottom in a specific circle, then that has an additional proviso in that it creates a certain form of rigidity. And in this case, the rigidity has to do with the underlying energy. Now, yellow in the internal world generally has to do with fear and trepidation, so it's a need to overcome that. In the real world, yellow has to do with happiness and joy. So here we have a situation in which we have a cyclical organization of a mental state of learning and digesting information, some which causes joy, some which causes fear. And it's a continual cycle moving from learning something, understanding that we don't understand very much of it, or learning need for learning more, which then feeds into more learning, which then feeds into more lack of learning, and so forth. And we just keep going round and round and round. Now, the interesting thing about this particular color is that yellow on yellow is the tarot reading for the Two of Cups. So it has to do with relationships. It has to do with the sharing of information, with the sharing of love. It has to do with sharing. And that Two of Cups is the creation of a partnership that is bound in joy and happiness. And at this stage, it appears to be extremely profitable for both parties. Let's now have a look at what happens in terms of the monthly travel. And there's another interesting thing that happens here, in that we go from orange, which contains a little bit of yellow, to white, which contains no yellow at all, but the transition is from dark to medium to light, and all of them as different ways of approaching exactly the same activity in the real world. I find that quite fascinating. I don't think I've ever seen a reading like this before. Certainly, the orange internally is always about a need or drive towards some form of assertiveness. You need to stand up. You need to be counted. There is a drama, a crisis, something that has caused you to have to stand up and be counted to overcome whatever the drama is, to be courageous, to be confident, to show that you can survive. In the real world, what has happened is that we have here purple energy. Now, purple energy always in the real world is some sort of extraneous energy that is destructive, that has come in and disrupted whatever it is that is going on in your life. Now, that happens all the way through the entire month. So, my goodness, what a month you are going to have. But that destructiveness, that disruption of stuff is dealt with by you in a way of creating something new. Because purple is the color of both destruction and creation. You break something down and you turn it into something new. And that's exactly what you're doing here. In the past, you've actually had to stand up and survive whatever that destructive force was. And you've created a new life as a result of it. In the present, you're now dealing with the need to overcome fear, but also the need to learn something new. Now, interestingly here, purple and yellow are opposites on the color wheel. So we have here a situation of being entirely in your own head. Purple is being in your head in imagination, and yellow is being in your own head as a result of having to deal with reality. So imagination and reality are at odds with one another. They're vying with one another for supremacy in your brain. What is interesting here is that they're the wrong way around. Yellow should be in the real world, in other words, being happy with the things that you are dreaming about internally. But here, this is not happy with the dreams. This is dreaming about happiness. Different thing altogether. And being opposites with one another, it means that you're being pushed and pulled between reality and fantasy, what you're dreaming about and what you can actually have to deal with in the real world. Move that on to what's happening in the future, and again we have that same disruption, that same destructive creative energy apparent in the real world, only this time it's accompanied by an emptiness in the internal world that is either an emptiness because you can't think anymore, you've exhausted all of the imagination and all of the reality learning that you can do here, and you've exhausted all of the courage and confidence that you had back here, or else it's an absolute flash of enlightenment. Suddenly, something has come into your consciousness that shows you a totally different way of approaching life. Now, This is an interesting card as well, because while this one was the Two of Cups, in the tarot, purple on white is the Eight of Cups. It's the moving away, the walking away from something. Here we have a partnership that is creating a great deal of joy and excitement. And here we have walking away. So how does this underlying energy impinge upon the entire month? Well, in every case, the yellow and purple, yellow, purple, yellow, purple is exactly the same. There is a vying of fantasy and reality happening in the real world throughout the entire month. You can't get away from it. What is different is that here we have orange and yellow as the drivers. And when orange and yellow come together, that generally means there's money around. It has to do with prosperity. It has to do with resources that are suddenly abundantly available. So regardless of the fantasy and reality that's happening here, the resources in the past have been there for you. In the present, we have a double dose of yellow, which is exactly the same as this combination here. Only this time it's only as a driver. So there is a need here for you to find a relationship. You've got a fantasy ideal of what sort of relationship you'd like, but the reality is it's very hard to find. And then we come over here where we have the yellow and white together. And this brings us to another tarot card opportunity, because yellow and white together are in fact the Two of Pentacles. So it's another set of choices. This was choices in love. This is choices in money. So there is an opportunity here in the future coming up for you to be able to create the sort of abundance, the sort of juggling of finances and the juggling of resources that's able to create for you the sort of fantasy life that you may want. But you have to be careful, because reality also can be in there. So do you have a positive aspect happening here, or is it one that is a cautionary one? It all depends on how you're responding to this issue here, how you're responding to this coming backwards and forwards between fantasy and reality. Remember, these are the wrong way around. Fantasy should be in internal life. Reality should be in the external life. Because you've got them the other way around, means you're spending a lot of time inside your head imagining what life could be like if things were better. That's not always a good place to start from. Nevertheless, by the time you get to here, you're already heading in a direction where you're finding yourself moving towards that situation where you have to walk away from whatever the fantasies and the dramas and the resource issues that you had back here have created for you. Let's have a look at what colours are missing to see if we can find something to help. There's no black, but you do have white. There's no red, but you have yellow. There's no green. There's no blue. There's no brown. You have orange. There's no grey. You have purple, more than enough. There's no pink. Mark that up there. Pink. And there is no cyan. Let's just move these a fraction. So what we have here are 4 colours, 4 sets of skills that you will be using throughout the month of August. That doesn't give you a lot of leeway in terms of what you can do and how you can respond to whatever it is that you're faced with. But then at the same time, that's exactly what is being shown here with all this creative, destructive energy. Partnerships that have created a crisis, that have caused you to have to wake up to yourself and now walk away. It's a very interesting way of looking at what is happening for you in August. What you aren't using and what might help you to overcome this walking away so it's not a destructive thing, because ultimately remember that walking away is a voluntary thing. It's not something that you are forced into. It's something that you choose. What is missing are these colors, these 8. Being able to take time out to rest, relax, recuperate. Being organized and orderly in the way in which you approach life. Having the energy to accomplish the things that you need to do. Having the particular goals that are set that are not only achievable, but also are likely to create some sort of permanent stability in your life. Being able to deal with uncertainty and confusion by seeking out what is true and what is factual. Being able to find new directions for yourself, green pastures, a better life, more values that will lead you down the path towards what you really need, which is love. And finally, being able to create the state of complete settling, bliss, and harmony that's necessary in order to be able to deal with all of this creation destruction stuff that's happening up here. Now, I don't know which of these is going to be most appealing to you and which is least appealing, but whichever they are, I suggest very strongly that you use those colors in some way in your life in the next month. Take those 2 colors, and when you add them to your underlying energy here, to whatever partnerships you have created or are about to create, that will lead you to a state from which, when you walk away, you'll be walking towards something, not just leaving behind everything in your wake without a proper destination in mind. Let's examine what the oracle card has to say. It says harmony, and it's an affirmation. I open myself to the divine being within me. I am the image of God. Thus I have the power to bring light into my life. I turn any darkness in me into something beautiful. In the absence of resentment, anger, or doubt, I find harmony. This is harmony. Maybe it's a color you should consider. Well, it seems like August is going to be a very interesting month, don't you think? I hope you've received something out of it, out of these readings that have been of benefit to you. And I hope you'll be back for the next one in September. In the meantime, please do consider using some of the colours that are missing and enter them into your life, because when you do, you find things do move in a different direction to the ones that are normally signed off as being inevitable in the readings. Remember, it's all about your choices. I certainly hope to see you again, and may your life be filled with lots of colour. And until next time, may the colours that you do bring into your life bring you the sorts of things that you desire and deserve. Bye.